The morning sun reflected off the glass towers of Grayson and Co., but the air inside the sleek conference room was ice cold. Jenna Marks stood stiffly near the door, her heart hammering in her chest. She had been summoned unexpectedly, and the faces arrayed around the table told her everything she needed to know. At the head of the table sat Lauren Grayson, CEO of the firm and the woman Jenna had once admired. Lauren's smile was tight, her voice smooth as she gestured to Jenna with manicured fingers. "Let's not waste time. Jenna, we're letting you go." The words hit like a gunshot, and Jenna felt her cheeks flush hot with humiliation. Around the table, her colleagues, people she'd mentored, supported, even covered for, looked away, their expressions carefully blank. "Your performance has been lacking," Lauren continued, her voice like silk over broken glass. "Your recent project failures have been unacceptable. This is a decision for the good of the company." Jenna opened her mouth to protest, but Lauren cut her off with a raised hand. "This meeting is over. Security will escort you out. Please pack your things." The guards appeared as if summoned by a silent cue, their hands light but firm on her arms. Jenna's mind reeled as she was led past her co-workers, past the desks and cubicles she had once called her domain. Some avoided her gaze, others whispered behind their hands. She felt each glance like a knife to the spine. She had given everything to this company. Late nights, weekends, missed family gatherings, years of dedication. And Lauren, with her icy smile and flawless mask, had thrown her out like garbage. Outside, the air was sharp and bracing. Jenna stood on the sidewalk, her box of personal items shaking in her arms. She didn't cry, not there, not in front of the glass tower where she had been dismantled. Instead, she inhaled deeply, her jaw tightening with something colder than grief. Determination. That day, she vowed she would never let anyone hold that kind of power over her again. She spent the next weeks in a haze of anger and planning. She updated her resume, called every contact she had, and swallowed her pride to ask for introductions. Many doors slammed in her face. Some, however, opened. She landed a low-level position at rival firm Ashfield and Crane, a name Lauren and her team had once scoffed at during strategy meetings. The office was smaller, the resources leaner, but Jenna attacked her new role with a ferocity that startled even her new bosses. She worked 16-hour days, volunteered for projects no one else wanted, and delivered results that turned heads. Her ideas were sharp, her strategies ruthless, and her work ethic relentless. She didn't just recover from her fall, she used it as fuel. Within 3 months, she had secured a promotion. By the 5th month, she was leading key accounts, outmaneuvering competitors with the kind of cutthroat efficiency that made boardrooms nervous and clients eager. She became a name whispered with respect, even fear in industry circles. It was during a late-night strategy session that her boss, a grizzled executive named Darren, leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, you remind me of someone. Lauren Grayson." Jenna's lips curled in a smile, though there was no warmth in it. "I'm nothing like her." But in some ways she was. She had learned from the best and the worst. Then came the merger. Ashfield and Crane, in a move no one in the industry had seen coming, announced a merger with Grayson and Co. It was a deal designed to shake the market, creating a powerhouse firm with a reach that spanned continents. The announcement sent shockwaves through the business world. Jenna read the news in her corner office, her fingers tapping against her phone, a slow smile spreading across her face. She knew the deal inside out. She had been instrumental in crafting the strategy behind the scenes. Her rise had not just been about recovery, it had been about positioning herself for this moment. She was not the same woman who had been escorted out of Grayson and Co. 6 months before. When the merger was finalized, the new leadership structure was announced. Lauren Grayson, once untouchable, was now reporting to the new vice president of operations. Jenna Marks? The day they met in the newly combined offices was one Jenna would remember forever. Lauren walked into the conference room, her heels clicking against the polished floor, her face composed but pale. When she saw Jenna sitting at the head of the table, her composure cracked. just for a moment. Her lips parted, her eyes widening. She opened her mouth to speak, but Jenna raised a hand, silencing her. "Sit down, Lauren," Jenna said softly. "We have a lot to discuss." The fall was over. It was time for the reckoning. Lauren's face was a mask of disbelief, her usual polished veneer cracking at the edges. She lowered herself into the chair at Jenna's command, her hands trembling ever so slightly. The other executives in the room, now representatives from both companies, exchanged wary glances, sensing the shift in power but too cautious to react. Jenna allowed the silence to stretch, savoring the discomfort. She had envisioned this moment countless times during sleepless nights and long hours of relentless work, but the reality was even more satisfying than she had imagined. "Let's begin," Jenna said, her voice low and controlled. "Lauren, you'll be overseeing the integration of our client accounts. You'll report directly to me with weekly updates." Lauren flinched. "That's not my area. I've always—" Jenna cut her off with a raised hand, her tone sharp enough to silence the room. "You've always focused on public relations and top-tier clients, which, as it turns out, has left significant gaps in our operational infrastructure. It's time you got your hands dirty with the actual mechanics of the company. Consider it a learning opportunity." The smirk on Jenna's face was subtle, but the sting was unmistakable. The once invincible Lauren was now being demoted to a role she would have dismissed as beneath her, and she had no choice but to accept it. Jenna leaned back, tapping her pen against the conference table. "Meeting adjourned. Lauren, stay behind." As the others filed out, murmuring quietly, Lauren sat rigidly, her hands clenched into fists. When the door clicked shut, Jenna stood and circled the table, her heels echoing in the quiet room. "I'm not here to gloat," she said, though the cold satisfaction in her voice betrayed her. "I'm here to make it clear that you're finished." Lauren's lips trembled, her voice a hoarse whisper. "You've made your point. But you don't know what you're doing. You're out of your depth." Jenna's laugh was low and sharp. "Out of my depth? You really think I clawed my way up from nothing, rebuilt myself from the ground up just to be out of my depth? You always underestimated me. That was your first mistake. Your second was humiliating me in front of everyone. Now it's your turn." Lauren's shoulders sagged, her once commanding presence reduced to a hollow shell. Jenna's gaze was unrelenting. "You're going to stay in this company. You're going to watch as everything you built crumbles under the weight of your arrogance. And you're going to answer to me for every decision, every misstep, every failure. If you so much as breathe out of line, I'll bury you professionally. Do you understand?" Lauren nodded stiffly, her face pale. "Good," Jenna said, stepping back. "You're dismissed." Lauren fled the room, her composure shattering the moment she was out of sight. Jenna remained standing, her heart pounding, not with nerves, but with triumph. She had turned humiliation into dominance, vulnerability into unshakable control. Over the next few weeks, Jenna's reign at the newly merged company was swift and decisive. She overhauled departments, cut bloated budgets, and terminated executives loyal to Lauren. Her sharp, no-nonsense approach won her respect from the board and grudging admiration from the staff. Productivity surged. The company's reputation, once tarnished by mismanagement, began to recover. Lauren, relegated to her new role, floundered. She stumbled through reports, struggled with operational details she had once ignored, and endured Jenna's pointed critiques in meetings. Her pride, once a towering fortress, crumbled under the weight of constant public correction. Jenna made sure of it. She scheduled mandatory presentations where Lauren had to explain her failures to the board. She assigned her tasks with impossible deadlines, knowing full well she would fail. Each misstep was documented, each failure magnified, until Lauren was a walking embodiment of incompetence. And Jenna watched it all with cold satisfaction. But she wasn't done. She was preparing for the final blow, the move that would erase Lauren Grayson from the company forever. Lauren's decline was as public as her once glamorous rise. Within weeks, her polished reputation turned into a crumbling facade of incompetence. Jenna made sure every misstep Lauren made was not only documented but broadcast to the board and key clients. There was no quiet corner left for Lauren to hide in, no one left to shield her from the storm. The final blow was a special board meeting Jenna called on a rainy Friday afternoon. The company's senior leaders gathered in the executive conference room, whispers flying like arrows as rumors of Lauren's imminent dismissal circled the air like vultures. Jenna sat at the head of the long, gleaming table, her expression unreadable as Lauren was summoned. The woman who had once stood over Jenna with cool detachment now entered the room with hesitant steps, her shoulders hunched, her designer heels clicking like the slow march of doom. "Sit," Jenna said, her voice low but cutting. Lauren sat stiffly, her eyes darting around the room, looking for allies who weren't there. Jenna opened a slim folder, spreading crisp papers across the table. "Here we have the results of the last quarter," she said, her tone cold and factual. "Under your supervision, operations have suffered severe losses. Client satisfaction has plummeted, and internal complaints have reached a level we cannot ignore." Lauren tried to speak, her voice cracking. "I was given impossible tasks. You set me up to fail." Jenna's smile was a sharp, cruel thing. "You mean like the impossible expectations you set for me? Or perhaps the way you threw me to the wolves, publicly humiliating me in front of the entire team while I stood powerless?" Lauren's lips quivered, but she remained silent. Jenna continued, her voice slicing through the air. "This is not about revenge, Lauren. It's about accountability, and you of all people should understand what it means to be held accountable." She tapped a document on the table. "Effective immediately, you are terminated from this company. Your remaining shares will be bought out at market value, and you will leave the premises under escort." Lauren's mouth opened in a silent gasp. The room remained dead silent, the weight of Jenna's words pressing down on everyone present. "Pack your things," Jenna added, her voice a whisper of steel. "Security will assist you." For a moment, Lauren looked as if she might protest, but the realization of her complete and utter defeat silenced her. She stood shakily, gathering her dignity as best she could. Without another word, she left the room. The heavy door clicked shut behind her, sealing her fate. Jenna sat back, exhaling slowly as the tension dissipated. The board members, previously cautious and distant, now looked at her with a mixture of respect and fear. She had not just outplayed her former boss, she had crushed her, leaving no room for retaliation. Over the next days, news of Lauren's ousting spread through the industry like wildfire. Analysts speculated, articles dissected the fall of the once powerful CEO, and Jenna's name rose to prominence as the driving force behind the company's resurgence. Jenna made swift decisions, cutting dead weight and initiating strategic partnerships that solidified the company's dominance. Employees who had been loyal to Lauren either adapted quickly or found themselves replaced. Jenna's leadership style was sharp, precise, and ruthlessly effective. And while she basked in the quiet, cold triumph of her victory, she never forgot the moment she had stood outside the glass tower, humiliated and broken. That memory fueled her, kept her sharp, and reminded her of what she had overcome. But there was one last piece to her plan. A move that would ensure Lauren Grayson's name would be forever tarnished, her legacy erased. Lauren's departure should have been the end of it. In the days that followed, her name was scrubbed from the company website, her face removed from marketing materials. Employees whispered about her fall from grace, speculated about her next move. But Jenna knew that wasn't enough. Lauren had built her reputation on a lie, propped up by stolen ideas, aggressive self-promotion, and a ruthless willingness to cut down anyone who threatened her. Even her firing could be spun as an unfortunate business decision, a victim of corporate politics. Jenna wasn't going to let that happen. She gathered the evidence, the hidden memos, the unauthorized bonuses Lauren had funneled into her personal accounts, the manipulated reports, the backdoor deals with suppliers that had siphoned millions from the company's coffers. It was all there, meticulously compiled over months. Jenna had anticipated every move, every denial Lauren might attempt. Then she sent it, To every major media outlet, to the financial regulators, to the legal authorities, the leak was clean, anonymous, and impossible to trace back to her. Within hours, headlines splashed across news feeds, each one more damning than the last. Former CEO Lauren Grayson, accused of fraud and embezzlement. Whistleblower reveals corruption scandal inside Grayson & Co. Exclusive: how a CEO's greed nearly bankrupted a Fortune 500 company. Lauren, already reeling from her dismissal, was blindsided. Paparazzi camped outside her gated estate. Former allies distanced themselves, statements of shock and disappointment pouring in from colleagues and partners. Financial accounts were frozen, lawsuits were filed. Jenna watched it unfold from her new office, high above the city. The glass walls reflected the skyline, the sun rising behind towering skyscrapers. She felt no remorse, no guilt. Lauren's downfall wasn't revenge. It was justice, a rebalancing of the scales that Lauren herself had tilted with her arrogance and greed. With Lauren gone and her influence destroyed, Jenna focused on building something better. She cleaned house, replacing the sycophants and yes-men Lauren had cultivated with competent, ethical leaders. She implemented new systems for transparency, ensuring that the corruption of the past could never take root again. Under Jenna's leadership, the company didn't just recover, it thrived. Clients returned, drawn by the promise of integrity and innovation. Talented individuals, once driven away by Lauren's toxic environment, sought positions within the revitalized firm. Jenna didn't seek the spotlight. She declined interviews, refused to comment on Lauren's downfall, and focused solely on her work. But her name began to carry weight in the industry. Quietly, her reputation grew. Not as a ruthless climber, but as a leader who had turned disaster into triumph, who had taken control when others faltered. Months passed. One crisp autumn evening, Jenna stood in her office, gazing out at the city below. She could see the lights of Grayson's former penthouse, now dark and empty. Somewhere beyond the city's glow, Lauren was fighting a losing battle to salvage what little remained of her name and fortune. Jenna felt no pity. She thought back to that day, the day Lauren had fired her in front of everyone, the day she'd stood on the sidewalk with her box of belongings and a resolve burning in her chest. Lauren had believed she'd broken her. Instead, she had forged her into something stronger, sharper, unbreakable. Jenna turned away from the window, her reflection fading into the shadows. She was done looking back. Her reign had just begun.